Well, let's get into today. So, we're tackling the topic today of performance development and probably, if anything, performance development that works. I know we did a few teasers over the last few weeks, very big difference between performance management and performance development.
Mm.
And we're going to continue that chat because I suppose around the people risk perspective when it's sort of whether it's financial or whether it's cultural fallout when you get it wrong. And I think that's the important point that we're going to try and put forward some ideas, some thoughts with what we're doing. And as Jen has mentioned, if you've got questions, chuck them into the. I don't think the Q&A bar is there for whatever reason, so chuck them into the chat bar, and we'll make sure we come to those questions. Over the last few episodes, we've had an enormous amount of questions, so it's important you use us as much as possible. Now, I suppose when we get it wrong, let's talk about that for a sec, because I mentioned that when you have a cultural fallout and accepting that sometimes, you know what, we are going to get it wrong because this is about accepting that we may not get things right. We're going to make mistakes and we're going to learn. So let's talk about that for a sec, Jenna. What's your thoughts on that's just how we learn, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And anything in the people space, it's not black and white. There's so much grey, their opinion, your opinion, and I like to say the truth in the middle. So, um, as Paul mentioned at the start, this is about performance development. So let's talk the good stuff about someone's performance and progression, not the management side when someone is underperforming. A lot of people come and they get that terminology intertwined and mixed. So today is about, like I said, the good stuff, the performance development, not tackling underperformance. That was last episode. So really, what that means is setting someone up for success, making sure that they are clear on what they're employed to do. Now, you may think it's clear, but they may not, and vice versa. So it's really making sure that you remove any uncertainty about that. And it all comes down to communication. Because if you don't communicate clearly, how is someone meant to know what you expect them to do? So that's the number one tip. And really communicating to those that you manage what success looks like for them
Spot on.
and for the business. So, everyone's employed to do a job that benefits a business, but also it needs to be able to benefit them and give them opportunity. Now, when I say opportunity, it doesn't mean to climb the ladder because not everyone wants to climb the ladder, but become a better version of themselves within the current role. So, when we talk about progression, it's not always go from, the junior to intermediate to senior. If we're talking, say, accounting terms, to manager to partner type of level, it's about just creating opportunities and progression within someone's current position. Clear boundaries, what really matters, and what bare minimum is versus stretch, and what you need to do. You want to make sure if you asked one of your employees, do you know what you're employed to do? You'd want to make sure that they know that answer. And that starts with the proper communication from day one.
And I think you're right. I think, this is where comms, I've sort of wrote it down because I don't believe you can ever over communicate as a leader in terms of just setting those expectations, clarity. If we're not clear, and I've been down the road with a number of different companies where if you look at the JD, someone starts in their role and yes, they've got a job description and then it's almost tucked into the drawer and forgotten about,
Mm.
as opposed to us bringing that out and saying, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about what you're really good at in this JD. Where do you need some help at? Exactly what you said before, Jenna. Where would you like to progress with your role? And there's nothing better than a leader that can actually communicate that. And you ask a question, listen. Your role is then not to speak, your role is to listen and hear the person that you've asked the question to, because that's their time, call it on the pedestal to say, yeah, okay, you know what? And I'll guarantee you, not many employers actually do this. And it
Correct.
can make a massive cultural difference where people suddenly become heard. A lot of people say, I don't get heard,
Yeah.
and this is where, again, little things like that are so important in terms of communication.
Correct. And a lot of the time it's just in a leader's vagueness, and not providing definite answers or priorities change. Now, I understand business changes all the time. I used to work for someone that he said business changes every 90 days. I completely agree. You focus on what you're doing today is going to be different in a few months' times. It can change weekly, depends on what type of industry you're in and the market and the economics and everything. But making sure that you communicate that change, giving feedback to people. Don't just wait for a formal meeting or a formal review. Give them feedback in a timely manner. So if there are improvements needed, they've got an opportunity to do it. Because there's no point raising something in 2 months' time when we've got that scheduled meeting. Just raise it at the time.